Hello, my name is Jim. Welcome to my booktube channel about books, reading and stuff. It's Tuesday. I have a tag for you. This is the epic Personal Rules for Reading tag created by MJ at Reading This Life, and she created an open source tag. This was inspired by Michael K. Vaughan and his rules for reading, but MJ made it into a tag. And she suggests everybody that does the tag adds their own prompt. I should have done this when she did hers. She tagged me because then I'd have far fewer prompts to answer. But let's see how we do. First prompt, do you strive to read every day? If yes, do you do anything different or special to make time with your day? If no, why not? I strive to read every day. I think I do read every day. I don't have a particular time for reading. I have books on my phone, on the Kindle app, so I can read when I'm on transport. I might read in the morning. I might read in the evening. When I have some spare time, I'll pick up a book, or I'll pick up my tablet or my phone to read. This month is Victober, and for Victober and for Doorstep of Doom, I have Bleak House. Because this is such a big book, I'm trying to read at least one chapter a day. There are 67 chapters in here. I've just read the first 4, but so far I haven't missed a chapter for a day. Obviously, with 67 chapters, if I just read one chapter a day, it's going to take me over 2 months to finish this. Do you always stay within your favourite genres, or do you experiment with different genres and subgenres? My comfort genres are police procedural and historical fiction, but I read many different genres. When I was a teenager, I liked science fiction, and I still read science fiction from time to time. This is October, the spooky month, so I have a couple of horror books on my TBR this month. But I read many different genres. I even read romance sometimes. It's not really my jam, but every July I read a Jane Austen novel. Do you DNF? Did not finish. If yes, what's the last book you DNF'd and the reason why? If your answer is no, then what drives you to finish a book? Yes, I do DNF on occasions if I get stuck in a book, if I don't like the book, or I'm not in the right headspace, then I'll DNF a book. The last book I DNF'd was this one, The Black Book by Orhan Pamuk. I like Orhan Pamuk usually, but I couldn't get into this book, which is why eventually I DNF'd it. It's been on my TBR since about April, and I tried getting into it a few times, and I managed to get up to page 96. But life is too short for reading books you don't enjoy. There are so many great books out there. I think DNFing is very healthy. Prompt number 4. Do you read challenging books? If yes, what draws you to them? If not, why do you avoid them? Sometimes I read challenging books. I don't read every challenging book. I'm not going to read Proust, La Recherche du Temps Perdu, and I've got no plans to read Finnegan's Wake, but I do read some challenging books. I read some Faulkner. I like to see different genres, different styles. I read Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus last month. But I also like to read easy books. Like if I'm in a reading slump, if I can pick up a police procedural, that's a very easy read usually. And it's very easy to follow the plot. So those were MJ's questions. Now we have some questions added by other booktubers. The first is Greg's question. Do you read books that have been banned by local authorities? I don't seek them out, but I've read books which have been banned. I liked Beloved by Toni Morrison. I liked The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. These books have been banned by various authorities in America. I like watching Ashley at Bookish Realm. She often does videos about banned books. I don't choose books particularly because they're banned. I just choose books which interest me. I don't think books should be banned. Steve Donohue's question. Do you clear your mind of preconceptions and biases before you start a new book? Or do you go in with axes to grind? Sometimes I have preconceptions before I start a book, but I'm not looking for axes to grind. I'm looking for something enjoyable to read. Criminoli's question: do you read books by authors whose views you disagree with? I've read some authors whose views outside the books I don't agree with, like Orson Scott Card, because he's very much a homophobe, but I really enjoyed Ender's Game. I don't read a lot of non-fiction. I don't read political books. If I want to get riled, I can just look at Twitter, and those tweets, I'm reading tweets by people whose views do not agree with mine at all. But I don't like to stay on Twitter a long time because it's very toxic. Steve Donahue had a second question. Do you recommend books if you end up really liking them? And if so, what form does that recommendation take? Yes, I recommend books I like. I talk about my books here on Booktube, YouTube. I also review the books on Goodreads and maybe Amazon, and I have a blog for reviewing books. Bill Ruttenberg's question: what was the last book you recommended? Was there a specific reason for that book? Do people come to you regularly for book recommendations? The last book I really recommended was The Peril in Decline by Pei Veo. I recommended this because it's a great read. I also recommended this because Pei Veo is a booktuber, and I think he deserves greater attention, both for his video content, but also for The Peril in Decline, which was an amazing read. It had me hooked from the beginning. It's the story of a girl, Simone, in France, who's come back from a clinic with a severe memory disorder. She can't remember who she is, and it's very philosophical. She gets to her apartment, and it's filled with rocks, and she's trying to figure out why the rocks are in her apartment. Yeah, it's a great read. I'd thoroughly recommend The Peril in Decline. Bill's second question was, what book have you had the most success in recommending? I can't think of any offhand. I've recommended The Time Traveler's Wife to several people, and some of them liked it, and some of them didn't. So I didn't. Maybe that one. And Micah Cummins' question: do you take notes or annotate while you read? If so, what form does it take? If I'm reading an ebook, I'll make lots of highlights as I'm reading. It's very convenient. I also have a reading journal, and I make notes in here every day about what I'm reading. I might write down certain passages. Also on Goodreads, I update each day how far I've got in the books, and I might make some notes or add some quotations. James Holder's question: how many books are in your personal library? How do you organize your books? I have about 200 books, I think. You can see the shelves behind me. They're in different things. There's classical literature here, there's Georgian literature here, there's fantasy. Sometimes there's a mishmash of books. I've got some books about art, books about comedy. Cookbooks are together. There's some order in it and some disorder in it. I like the serendipity of looking through the shelves. I'm going to add a prompt. Do you read books in languages other than your own? I imagine if you're not a native English speaker, you'll probably be reading some books in English if you're watching this video, because it's in English. When I lived in France, I read many books in French. Now I don't read so many. This was on my TBR a few months back, Mon passant fort comme la mort, but I still haven't got to it. I'm struggling to read books in Georgian. This is just a book of poetry for kids, and that's a struggle for me. Leksebi by Nodo Dombadze. I often buy books in Georgian with the hope of being able to read them. This is Dato Terapshvili, American Fairy Tales, the Georgian version. I have the English version, so I can go from one to the other, but my Georgian is still very weak. Who do I tag? I will tag Ash Taylor, Novel Idea, and Books Cause Insomnia. And if you like this tag, please feel free to do it. I'll link to MJ's original tag, and I'll link to Micah Cummins and James Holder's tags as well. If you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe below, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.